What is up? What is up? What is up? Welcome back. Back. Welcome back. Daily dose, daily dose. We are coming at you with day number 110. And you know what that means? That means we've got Psalm number, you guessed it, 110. We've also got Isaiah chapters 5 through 8. We will go ahead and jump right on in. I'm glad y'all are joining me. I'm glad you guys are sticking with me. If you're new here, welcome. We appreciate you. If you need to get a copy of the Bible reading plan that we're using as we go through the Bible reading plan over the course of this year, you can get it down below in the description. Just click on that link and it will automatically download to the download folder normally on your device. So today in chapter 5, we start off looking at the Song of the Vineyard, right? So it's a song, and who would have thought Isaiah is a musician? I guess so, right? He wrote a song. He wrote a couple songs. So God basically relates Israel to a vineyard and himself as the vine dresser in this song. From there, we go on to look at a section about woes and judgments, okay? I don't remember exactly how many times the word woe or woes is mentioned in this book, but I think it's 22 or something like that. It's quite a bit. It's a big topic of this book. And so we read that the people were enjoying their luxuries. And then there's a but, right? But they had no regard for the Lord. So basically, a lot of these people, the Israelites, they were living high on the hog. They were enjoying their arts and their music and their food and culture and they were enjoying everything. Yet they had no regard for the Lord, who was the ultimate creator of everything that they were able to enjoy. It's kind of ironic, right? Then we read that God says they will go into exile. And furthermore, we read that the arrogant will be humbled. They will be brought down. They will be knocked down a peg or two. Okay? Then we read about a woe to those who call evil good and good evil. And I think that this is so appropriate for the time that we live in. Not just now, but even going back, starting a few hundred years ago. Just the whole concept of relativism and when that kind of became a thing, right? Everything is relative. What's truth to you may not be truth to me, right? What is good for you may not be good for me. And I'm sorry, I've just got to be real. That's ridiculous. There is truth, right? To try to say that what's true for someone may not be true for someone else, that truth is subjective. Opinion can be subjective, but ultimate truth cannot be subjective. That's a whole other conversation for a whole other day. But again, people were calling evil things good, and people were calling things that were good evil. They had everything backwards. And this subjectivism and relativism, we're seeing it in a very powerful way right now. And I don't want to step on any toes, so if I am stepping on toes, I apologize. I mean no disrespect. But I believe that it's abundantly clear in the Bible that God created men and he created women. He created men with a certain sexual organ, and he created women with a certain sexual organ, okay? I do not follow the whole train of thought that's going on right now where there's gender identity. I'm sorry. I don't personally believe that that's biblical. I don't believe that it's ethical, and I don't believe that it's pleasing in the eyes of the Lord, okay? You don't have to agree with me. If you don't, that's your prerogative, okay? That's okay. But I have to speak what I believe the Bible is speaking, right? That people who are born men decide that they want to be women. So they're going to make people call them a woman, right? People that are born women, some of them, feel that they should have been born a man. So they're going to tell you, well, I may look like a woman and have the anatomy of a woman and the chromosomes of a woman, but you got to call me a man. This is calling something it's not, calling something the opposite of what it is. And as the moral and ethical norms of our society continue to go downward in this direction, as adultery becomes more acceptable by society, as divorce becomes more acceptable by society, right? As homosexuality becomes more accepted by society, as all of these things that I believe the Bible classifies as sin, as all of these things that are sinful, and there's many more than that. I'm not just picking out those. I'm just speaking about those because probably over the past 100 years, all of those things have become so much more readily accepted in the mainstream by society, by the law, by people's public opinion, right? I think that this country is going in the same direction where we're starting to call evil good and good evil, and that it is greatly distressful to the Lord. But I'll stop right there. Then we read about Isaiah's commission, and this is where he basically is officially commissioned to be a prophet of the Lord. This happens in the year that King Uzziah died. Okay, so we were just recently reading about him in the book of Kings, right? So this is officially when Isaiah's ministry starts, and I believe that it ended up lasting for 50 something years, 52 years or 58 years. I can't remember exactly, but it's a relatively long ministry, right? And this is when it starts, the year King Uzziah died. Now Isaiah has a vision of the Lord seated on a throne up high, and the train of the Lord's robe comes down and like goes into the temple and kind of coils up and fills up the temple almost. It's really a crazy sight to picture. To try to make this more relatable, I picture myself being inside of the local church building that I go to, right? You could even picture, if you don't go to a local church building, if you're just in your home, right? Imagine that the roof just got lifted off your house, right? The roof is just gone, just like in a tornado, Wizard of Oz style, right? The roof is just boop, gone. You can look up and see everything up above you, right? Now imagine that you look up and way up high, you can see Jesus seated on a throne wearing this massive white robe. And the robe is so spectacular, and the train of it comes down and coils up and fills up your house and overflows over the edges of where the roof used to be. I mean, this must have been a crazy, majestic, beautiful sight. And we read that in this vision Isaiah has, there are seraphim, kind of like these angelic beings of some sort, that are ministering to the Lord and proclaiming his holiness. And this is something interesting that I want to make note of. One of the first things that happens is Isaiah acknowledges his unworthiness to be in God's presence, right? He says, "Oh, woe is me. Who am I to even be in your presence?" Right? And I think, and this is again just my personal opinion, I think that people often will have will kind of envision when they meet Jesus, right? The believer. Oftentimes, I think that people will envision, dying, and when they die, they're going to be in heaven and they're going to run and meet Jesus with a big running hug, like in the movies when two people haven't seen each other in forever, and then they just run across this field and it's all like slow motion, and then they hug each other, right? That may be the way that it happens. I don't know. But based on what happens so often when people encounter the glorified God, the living God, they humble themselves in awe and they bow down because they know that they are not worthy, right? Maybe that's what will happen. Maybe when we come into the presence of Jesus, we will realize how short we have fallen in and of ourselves and apart from his sacrifice. And we will bow down in awe at his holiness and at his majesty. We will be leery of running to him because we won't feel that we're worthy. And again, in and of ourselves we're not, but if we have trusted in what Jesus did on the cross, we are worthy, right? So again, that's just me kind of thinking out loud, speculating based on various instances in the Bible when people run across angels or the angel of the Lord or the pre-incarnate Christ, what do? Normally, they're afraid and they bow down and say, I'm not worthy. I don't deserve to be anywhere near you, right? So, anyways, going on from there, in the scripture, we read that there's a voice that says, who will go? Whom shall I send, right? Presumably the Lord speaking. And Isaiah volunteers. Isaiah says, hey, send me. I'll go. The Lord tells Isaiah what to say to the people, and it's basically a declaration of judgments and destruction, negative stuff. And then we read about this section that's entitled in my Bible, the Sign of Emmanuel. This is very cool. Not that the rest wasn't, but this is specifically interesting in regards to the New Testament and Jesus. God tells Isaiah to go prophesy to King Ahaz, okay? He tells Ahaz not to fear these various kingdoms that have been trying to attack and oppress him. And then God tells Ahaz, he basically says, ask for a sign, whatever you want, from the highest highs or the lowest lows. Ask for a sign, and I will give you a sign. And then Ahaz says what I think would be the correct answer, right? Ahaz says, no. Who am I to test the Lord? You don't have to do anything to me. Who am I to demand that you prove something to me with a sign, right? And I would think that that's the correct answer, right? He's humbling himself. He's recognizing, like, who am I to, you don't have to prove yourself to me, God. But then we read that Isaiah says that Ahaz is trying the patience of God by not answering, right? So, God specifically said, hey, I want you to test me. I want you to tell me what sign you want me to give, right? And I guess we're supposed to always obey what the Lord tells us to do, right? So if God is telling him to do this, I guess he probably should do it. So anyways, God says that this is what the sign will be. A virgin will conceive and give birth to a boy, and the boy will be named Emmanuel. So basically, we have an early prophecy, an early prediction here of the Messiah himself, the ultimate sign. And then we read about the pronouncement of the Assyrian captivity, right? The Assyrians are going to come, and they are going to take many of the people captive, many of Israelites captive. Then we read that a section that, again, in my Bible is entitled Assyria, the Lord's Instrument. Okay, so essentially the Lord, in some way, it could be said, he is using Assyria to execute his judgment on the Israelites. So we've got a descriptive prediction of events that will unfold when Assyria takes over, basically. The next section is titled Isaiah and his children as signs. Okay, so we read that Isaiah has a child, and he declares that him and his children are symbols to Israel. Okay, then we go on to read a section about the darkness turning to light. And there's a warning here in this section, a warning against consulting mediums and spiritists, which we've read those in the past. And there's a warning of the darkness that will come for the people who do not consult God's instructions. So that just reminds us that it's always a good idea to consult God's instructions. And where do we find his instructions? In the Holy Bible. That's the primary place that we find his instructions. So thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for letting me ramble in your ears a little bit, and I appreciate your time. I pray that you guys will have a good day, and we'll do it again tomorrow. So thanks for being with me. Thanks for respecting my opinion. I respect your opinion, and let's do it again tomorrow. Till we meet again, deuces.